Imagine you're at a family wedding. The music is loud, the laughter endless, and then it comes. The inevitable question: Beta, when are you getting married? It's asked with a smile, but it lands like a hammer. Because in India, being single is rarely just a personal decision. It's either framed as a social failure, a mark of incompleteness, or increasingly a radical choice. Tonight, we are going to peel back the layers on what it really means to be single in India. Is it a lifestyle, a rebellion, a political act, or is it a social burden forced upon those who don't fit into the conventional script? The weight of tradition. Marriage in India, like we've already covered in an earlier episode, isn't just about two people, it's about families, caste, religion, and social community. The cultural expectation is so strong that to remain single feels like resisting a tide that has swept generations before you. Historically, marriage was never about romantic love. It was a system of alliance, property management, and family honor. For women, especially, being unmarried was considered dangerous to social order. An unmarried woman was seen as incomplete, suspicious, even a threat because she didn't belong under the control of a husband or in laws. Even today, in many households, the pressure comes not just from parents, but from extended family, neighbors, even acquaintances. A person's value is measured through their marital status. Singlehood is rarely neutral. It's read as lack, as loneliness, as irresponsibility. But here's the paradox. While tradition paints singleness as a problem, modern India is witnessing a slow but undeniable rise in people who are choosing to remain unmarried. Let's look at the data. Census figures and recent surveys indicate that the number of single men and women in India is on the rise. In 2011, India already had over 71 million single women. That number has only grown in the last decade. Urban centers, especially, are home to professionals, women and men, who are either delaying marriage or rejecting it altogether. Women are entering higher education, pursuing careers, and becoming financially independent in ways that were far less common for earlier generations. This shift is not just statistical, it's cultural. Every percentage increase in single people is a crack in the centuries old system where marriage was the unquestioned default. Now, the gendered burden of singlehood. So, let's be clear, singleness doesn't affect men and women equally. For men, especially those from middle and upper class backgrounds, bachelorhood is often tolerated, sometimes even celebrated. He's focusing on his career. People say, or he hasn't found the right girl yet. The narrative allows men more time and leeway. For women, however, the same choice is often read as selfish, deviant, or pitiable. She becomes the leftover woman, the too ambitious girl, the one who missed her chance. Society reads a single woman's life not as independence but as absence absence of a husband, of children, of a complete family. This gendered framing reveals the politics behind singlehood. Women who reject marriage aren't just making personal choices, they're resisting a system that defines their value through caregiving and reproduction. And that resistance is inherently political. Think about it. Choosing to remain single in India is not the same as choosing to remain single in, say, Sweden or US. Here, the weight of family honor, caste, arrangements, and patriarchal control makes the choice radical. For women, singlehood is about reclaiming agency over their bodies, finances, and futures. Refusing marriage is refusing to be slotted into the role of daughter in law, wife, mother. It is a refusal to be subsumed. And it's not just women. For queer people, singlehood is often both survival and resistance. In a country where same sex marriage is still not legally recognized, choosing not to marry becomes a refusal to conform to heteronormative expectations. It's about creating alternative kinship networks, friendships, and communities that stand outside the family system. In this sense, being single in India is a political act, whether one declares it or not. But let's not romanticize it entirely. Being single in India also carries real burdens. From landlords refusing to rent to unmarried women, or men to workplaces assuming singles can work late because they have no families, to hospitals asking for next of kin. The world is built for couples and families. Social spaces often exclude single women. Travel packages are per couple, festivals are family occasions, even friendship circles begin to shrink when peers get married and drift into couple centric lives. There's also the very real issue of loneliness. While marriage is no guarantee of happiness, single people, especially women, often face a lack of institutional and emotional support. Indian society isn't structured to support independent single lives and especially women. This structural exclusion makes singlehood feel like a burden, even when chosen freely. But of course, slowly we are seeing new narratives emerge. Popular culture is beginning to show single women and men not as objects of pity but as individuals with agency. Think of films like Queen, where Rani's solo journey to Europe after a broken engagement becomes the story of a self discovery. Or Piku, where Deepika Padukone's character negotiates singlehood while caring for her father, refusing to settle for a marriage of convenience. On social media, too, single women are reclaiming space, sharing stories of joy, independence, and fulfillment outside marriage. They are building communities that validate each other's choices. This cultural shift is vital because as long as singlehood is stigmatized, individuals will continue to face pressure and exclusion. But when singlehood is seen as legitimate, as meaningful, it stops being a burden and starts becoming one more way of living a life. But here's the thing, this cultural shift doesn't just ask us to see singlehood differently. It asks us to question the myth that's been sold to us for centuries, the myth of happily ever after. Because from the time we are children, our stories end with marriage, as if that's the grand finale of a person's life. The princess marries the prince, and the music swells, and the credits roll. But what happens after? We are never told. And so we grow up believing that marriage is the ultimate destination. Everything before it is just a waiting room, which means anyone who refuses to enter that room or simply takes a different path becomes a question mark in a world that only understands exclamation points. But maybe, just maybe, singlehood is not just a pause. It's a choice to write an entirely different story. Across urban India today, we are seeing people who are doing exactly that, crafting full, rich, messy, beautiful lives without needing marriage as validation. Some are living with friends and building what sociologists call chosen families. Some are co parenting without marriage, others are pouring their love into work, activism, art, or community care. And they are proving something powerful, that intimacy, belonging, and purpose don't have to be confined within the boundaries of a legal or social institution. And here's where it gets really interesting. When singlehood becomes visible, it also becomes threatening to the social order. Because the single person disrupts a system that thrives on dependency, economic, emotional, reproductive. A woman living alone defies the idea that her safety and social legitimacy come from male protection. A man choosing to remain unmarried unsettles a culture that equates masculinity with being a provider. A queer person rejecting heteronormative marriage calls into question the very foundation of what the state and society define as family. So, when society ridicules or isolates single people, it's not just about moral judgment, it's about maintaining control. Because every single person who says, I can be enough by myself, chips away at the structures that benefit from people staying in their assigned roles. And maybe that's what makes singlehood so radical because it shifts the power back to the individual. It says you don't need an institution to validate your existence. You don't need to be someone's wife, husband, partner, or parent to be seen as whole. It's not anti marriage, it's pro choice. It's the idea that whether you choose marriage or not, that choice should come from freedom, not fear. So perhaps the real question isn't why are you single? Maybe it's why does your singleness make others uncomfortable? Because often it's not the single person who's unsettled, it's the society that cannot imagine fulfillment outside conformity. And until we challenge that, singlehood will continue to be treated as an anomaly instead of a valid, vibrant way of life. Because the truth is, being single isn't about being alone, it's about being autonomous. It's about owning your time, your decisions, your silence, and your joy. And that in a world that constantly tells us who we should be with might just be the most political act of all. So here's what it comes down to. Being single in India isn't a tragedy waiting for correction. It isn't a phase that needs fixing. It's a reality. For some, a choice, for others, a circumstance. But either way, it's a valid way of being. Because singlehood, when you strip away the stereotypes and the social noise, is really about belonging, not to someone else, but to yourself. And that belonging, that quiet confidence of saying, I am enough, might just be the most revolutionary statement in a world built on dependency and approval. We live in a society where everyone wants to claim your story: parents, relatives, even the government. They tell you when to marry, whom to love, how to live. But to say no, to define yourself outside of these scripts, is not selfish. And it's about recognizing that wholeness is not something another person grants you, it's something you reclaim for yourself. Solitude isn't always the absence of connection, it's the space where you learn to connect more deeply with the world. It's in that quiet apartment you pay for with your own hard earned money. It's in the friendships that feel like home. It's in the books on your shelf, the coffee mug that always fits with your hand just right, the decisions that no one else gets to make for you. So the next time someone asks, "Why are you still single?" maybe you can smile and say, "Because this version of my life is not a waiting room, it's the main event." Because every life, married or not, is complete when it's lived with intention. And the freedom to belong to yourself fully and apologetically, it's not a compromise, it's power. Thank you so much for being with me. If this episode made you think, question, or simply breathe easier in your own skin, share it with someone who might need to hear. You are whole, you are enough, and your story, single or not, matters. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share, and do let me know your thoughts in the email given in the description. Do keep looking through the personal lens.